So I always assumed Ingus was the Onion Knight because they're both blonde, and, well, no one else is. Speaking of the Onion Knight, I just found out I can get his Neovision form to EX+2, so hooray! Farming! Awaken Onion Knight's Trustmaster reward is an accessory of decent attack and magic. It also has a passive that gives a nice MP regen, and a relatively small dual wield boost. It's okay. His Super Trustmaster reward is a materia that boosts attack when carrying a sword, and half the cap to the current dual wield equipment attack stat. This is fine. Currently, it's not too difficult to hit the cap, on the off chance you wanted to, but it's still significant nonetheless. On to his active abilities. He's gained a new cooldown ability, True Twin Swords. It's an attack that chains with Absolute Mirror of Equity and partially ignores the enemy's defense. While it's pretty strong, you can't use it until the 4th turn. Also, it doesn't seem to be included in multicast, which kinda sucks, given the ability itself only chains with a single cast. The rest of his abilities do receive significant modifier buffs, thanks to his passives, kit, and updated Layer Burst, but their side effects don't receive any buffs. As a result, I'm just going to skip them, because honestly, you won't remember anything if I go through this. Passives. With his Trustmaster reward or Super Trustmaster reward equipped, Onion Knight gets small boosts, very small. He has received 4 killers, a boost to his Layer Burst damage, wow, so significant, and a significant boost to his Layer Burst regen. His normal attack has been changed to attack, which fills a small amount of his Layer Burst gauge. This Brave ability here is pretty important, boosting his attack and his damage modifiers, but of course, you may want to upgrade it. He prefers to carry 2 weapons, despite, well, clearly not, and unfortunately, that chain cap boost is only tied to dual wielding. Unleash Power remains the better version of Warring Spirit, and lastly, his elemental resistance is very significant, though only for 4 of them. At EX+2, he gets 200 attack and magic. At EX+3, he gets 300 attack and magic. Ultimately, it's just a standard 500 stat boost, but partitioned over 2 stages. Let's look at his Layer Burst. The damage modifier has been significantly improved, but nevertheless, it's still pretty bad. It does increase the damage modifier of his abilities, which is pretty significant, if you plan to use him in this form. Time to change forms. Awaken Onion Knight's Brave Shift doesn't have a turn duration, but it does have a 2-turn cooldown. On to his active abilities. He's got a lot of magic spells. The white magic is the basic set for healers. His black magic spells can be awakened to their highest stage, meaning everything hits stage 3 except for Meteor, which hits stage 2. Not that it makes it any less powerful. His green magic can only be awakened to stage 2, which isn't too significant. Passives. With his Trustmaster reward or Super Trustmaster reward equipped, Onion Knight, well, Sage, gets a whopping 1000 magic, and a damage modifier buff to his magic spells, just to offset how poorly designed his awards are for this form. He retains the killers, and his Layer Burst damage has increased to half. His Layer Burst regen has dropped by 2 though. He now prefers to properly carry a single weapon, meaning half the cap to the chain layer boost. His normal attack has been changed to attack, which is multi-element. At EX+2 he will gain Warring Spirit, because he lost Unleash Power, why? He's also lost a substantial amount of elemental resistance. Let's look at his Layer Burst. It removes the buffs from your team, and then massively strengthens their damage modifiers for the black magic that Sage can use, with the exception of Meteor. Let's rank Brave abilities. He only has 2, and therefore his base form, which you might not even use. Nevertheless, if you were, Warrior of Light's duty will boost him overall, while True Twin Swords just strengthens itself. Time to make a damage rotation. On turn 1, use Meteor. Unfortunately, after that, his MP is pretty much shot, so just do whatever until he gets his MP back. But what if you want to use his physical damage? On turn 1, use his Layer Burst. On turn 2, cast Pre-Cooking, Adept Fire Art, and Fire Slice if you don't have a better Imperil. On turn 3, triple cast Fire Shredder. On turn 4, cast True Twin Swords. On turn 5, cast Onion Dissect, Adept Fire Art, and Fire Slice. Repeat the rotation from here, staggering the ability buffs. So, EX2? Whatever, it's stats. So how good is Awaken Onion Knight? Despite all the improvements and cool stuff in his kit, it's ultimately overshadowed by the inclusion of Stage 2 Meteor, which just has ridiculous potential. Of course, While Meteor's ultimate modifier depends on how high you can push that MP stat, it still relies on its magic stat as well. If you don't want to go haha big rocks go kaboom, you can of course switch to physical or magical damage. His base form's Land Burst modifier pretty much sucks, but its true strength lies in boosting his ability's damage modifiers, especially his shredders, since they not only hit twice, but also partially ignore defense. True Twin Swords can actually be fairly strong as well, though of course you still want to imbue it, and you have to wait to use it. Twin Swords Plus is in a similar spot, but of course weaker. His magic damage without Meteor is unfortunately vastly inferior, to the point I'd actually suggest sticking with his physical form. However, even though his modifiers might suck, you can use him to strengthen other units. For example, you can pair him with Ingus's Thundaga, or Rinoa's Tornado or Quake. His ability to dispel debuffs on their team is also very cool, especially when tied to his low-cost Land Burst. Lastly, him, or Gobez. The thing with Meteor is that it's exactly the same for both units, so the ultimate difference comes down to how high you can push their stats. Now, their stats are actually pretty similar, and there's not much overlap when it comes to their armor. However, the key difference here is that Gobez provides a better head start when it comes to stats, and thereby may leave extra room for killers. Furthermore, being a super Land Burst unit, Gobez can have more to do after Meteor, and doesn't run the risk of spending time in a possibly unnecessary form if something happens. Of course, everything depends on what you've got, so it can still be quite a toss-up. Thanks for watching, and if you liked this video, leave a like and subscribe. Comment below how far you can take Awakened Onion Knight. I can only hit EX+1, so that's kind of embarrassing.